Hi, I'm Justin Barrett. I'm president of Blueprint 1543. I'm a psychological scientist and former university professor. Welcome to this episode. It's the first in a series called AFTER. And AFTER is an acronym. Think after 65. This is my series of little nuggets of science-backed, or at least science-inspired advice for living well as we're getting older, past age 65. And the A in AFTER stands for activity. One of the things we need to think about is what kinds of activities should we be engaged in? And maybe more importantly, to be sure we are active. We are engaging in activities. I'm going to talk about three different kinds of activities. The just generally being kind of active in a meaningful way, so meaningful activity. Second, physical activities. And third, new activities. So meaningful activities. It's really important as we age to keep engaged in meaningful activities that give depth and texture to our lives, that we find important. They don't have to be world-changing important, but they're important to us in some ways. They're not just drudgery, they're not just duties, but they bring meaning and fulfillment to us to a certain extent. Most of us throughout our lives, our jobs can do some of that work. But then what happens when you're not working that primary job anymore? Maybe you've retired. Side note here, one of the reasons we need to talk about this is because we weren't made for retirement. Those who are Christians like I am, you can go ahead. I challenge you to scour your Bible and find the concept of retirement in the Bible. You're not going to find it. It's not a biblical idea. We were made for work. From in the beginning, we were placed in the story of Adam and Eve in the garden. They are placed and given work to do in the garden. And God doesn't say, and work until you're 65 and then you get to retire. That is not a biblical concept. And it turns out it's not a psychologically healthy concept either. We weren't made for retirement. Now, I recognize there's some jobs out there you just can't do at a certain point. Or if you've done them for so many years because they're so stressful, they're so demanding, you got to do something different because they wear you down. And I really admire and respect people who have had those types of jobs as first responders, police officers, soldiers. Yeah, you've kind of earned a retirement from that job, but it's not healthy for you if you don't keep doing meaningful activities. Now, those could be volunteer activities. They could be other kinds of work. But you've got to find something that's giving you meaning in your life. And there are lots of options out there, but sometimes it takes a little bit of creativity because we haven't been given too many, useful examples oftentimes. A fun one that I got to sort of witness at a distance was my grandmother-in-law. Her activities that she started doing after she worked a full career, she started really getting into genealogy work. And she was doing this into her 90s. And it helped keep her mentally sharp, interested in something outside of herself and her day-to-day life. And it sort of gave her also hooks into new communities of relationships and other people. So it was an activity she could do socially. It meant a lot to her because she was genealogically investigating her family. And then that was something she could share, her past family, and then she could share to her descendants, her children and grandchildren. And so it was meaningful to her. But I've seen other older people start to do other kinds of meaningful activities like get really involved in learning about the local history of where they live on the state, local, county, and so forth level, or even national level, because it's something they always wanted to know more about. And so they travel around locally, do their reading and so forth, and just learn about their area, about its culture and about its past. So that's kind of meaningful activity that someone might engage in as well. Or there's just simply investing in the lives of your children and grandchildren. Get interested in what they're interested in. Learn about what they're learning about. Go and support them in what they're doing. There are lots of ways that as we're getting older, we can still continue to be active in those meaningful ways, even if it's not tied to employment. Probably historically, the number one way of people finding meaning in that has an enduring post-work life and even post-grandchildren kind of trajectory is they're investing in their local church. A lot of people find meaning in the activities, not just of the Sunday morning activities of the church, but what's the church doing in the community? Are there volunteer activities and other sorts of things that can be invested in? And these days, people in their HOAs and other types of neighborhood activities, there are other ways to invest and make a meaningful difference. And one of the fun things about living in the era that we do with all of these digital technologies is that there are fun ways to be involved even in big scientific research projects. So for instance, the ornithology labs at Cornell University rely on volunteers all over the country to gather data in tracking birds. Where are the birds migrating? Where are they nesting? How are they doing? I know of retired people who, count bluebirds or track other kinds of migratory birds and send that information back to Cornell for their studies. There are other kinds of crowdsourced scientific projects out there, like categorizing galaxies, archaeological projects sometimes. So there are lots of different ways in which elderly people can still be making meaningful contributions to things that they care about. And that's really important for us as we age. Physical activity is also very important for us. And of course, one of the physical activities that a lot of elderly people engage in really is a good one, and that is golf. That's why I'm wearing my Tigger golfing tie. And this is one that, my dad is engaged a lot in because it does get you outside in nature, on uneven surfaces, using many parts of your body at the same time, and you can be done socially as well. My encouragement would be, though, don't just stick with golf and only golf, but as a part of your activity regimen, it's a very good one. And not everybody is going to go out there and run a marathon. In fact, the first guy who ran the marathon died. So I'm not a super fan of marathons with that as its sort of precedent, but running, walking, swimming, all of these kinds of things, of course, they're good for us because they elevate our heart, and we need to get our heart and cardiovascular system active and busy in helpful, enduring sorts of ways, especially as we're getting older. Maybe the best way to do that, to get started, really is just to make a regular habit of daily walking. And if you find you're having trouble motivating yourself to do that all by yourself, find somebody dependable to walk with. Maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's a best friend. If you don't have that one dependable person, maybe find two slightly less dependable people, or three, so that then if one person flakes out, you still have somebody who you're going to meet up with to walk. And walking outside is better than walking inside. But walking inside on a treadmill is better than not walking at all. Why is walking outside better? Because it engages more variation in your muscles because of irregularities in surfaces, causes your pelvis, causes your core muscle system to constantly be doing lots of little fine adjustments. And that's actually better for avoiding repetitive motion kinds of injuries, but also just strengthening everything. It's more organic. And bonus, you're getting more sensory stimulation from the natural world than you get from inside. Even if you've got a screen mounted to your treadmill or stationary bike, getting outside is actually better still. So from that example, let me extract a couple of principles. One is our activity, physical activity, should be using as much of our bodies as possible, not just our legs, not just be cardiovascular work, but preferably kinds of activities or a variety of activities that use upper body, lower body, that use all of our senses. Remember, I did an episode on how many senses we have. We need to be using at least the 9+ senses and keeping them active and engaged and dealing with information as much as we can. It's good for our brain as it ages to get all of those different kinds of information and to be integrating those. But especially when we're exercising our propriosensory system, that is our system that sort of pays attention to where our body is in space, where our body is in relation to the other body parts, and our vestibular system, which is our balance system. Because we know as we get older, balance can sometimes become an issue, and then that leads to falls, which leads to injuries, which makes it harder to stay active. Doing activities that require us to use those systems, even when we're starting to feel a little bit unstable, is actually a good thing. It's scary. We need to do it in the right controlled way, but it's important to keep exercising those different kinds of sensory systems, perceptual systems, as well as our physical systems, our legs, our arms, our backs, our stomach muscles, our glutes. Strangely, that's one that gets neglected all the time. And everybody wants that great booty, especially when you're 75, because Sorry, that was an unnecessary aside. Meaningful activities, physical activities, and by all means, try new activities. It's easy as we age to think we've tried everything we want to try and we're going to slip into our routines and get very set. But actually, there's some real value to trying out new stuff, especially as we age. When you stop learning in a whole-bodied sense and stop trying new things, that's when you start dying. So we really want to keep stretching ourselves into new domains, go new places, try new activities, learn new games, try a new skill that you've thought, hey, I used to always think that when I had enough time, I would do X, Y, or Z. It's actually not too late to start. Some people start playing a musical instrument at 80. My wife is a line dance instructor, and she commonly gets new line dancers starting, post-retirement, and they want to try this out for the first time. Or for some of the women that she has in her classes, it's because their husband has passed away, and now they need to get out and do a new activity where they meet new people. And some of them really pick it up and do very, very well. We've danced with people into their 90s. So it is definitely an activity that ticks many of these boxes in terms of using your whole body system, as well as getting you out trying something new. New activities, try painting, drawing, actually learning these different new skills. Try cooking new foods, try eating new foods, try going new places. There are lots of new activities that you can do that, while uncomfortable at first, stretch us, exercise our minds, and give us a chance to discover something that we really enjoy that maybe we didn't notice before. But overall, the big moral of this first story of the A is be active. Try new activities, make sure you're getting plenty of physical activity, and seek out those meaningful activities for yourself as you're getting older. That is one of the first and most important bits of how to age successfully and have a really good last quarter of your life. So that's A. Come back for FTER in the After series on aging well. I'm Justin Barrett from Blueprint 1543. Thanks for joining me. Like, subscribe, give us comments if you want me to address anything or you have questions that you'd like clarified. See you next time.